You recording?
Yeah.
All right, what I want to tell you guys about is a little 10-year-old boy that I saved his life. What? It was before Hurricane Ike. What was that? Probably about 20 years ago, huh, Linda? 18 years ago. The little boy's name is Brian Prauge. Okay? He was about 10 years old at the time. I was outside. It was about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night after dark. I was outside. I was working on my truck. And I heard a noise, a commotion. I looked up to see what appeared to be a car chasing after this little boy, trying to run him over. Well, the little boy cut across the open field there across the street that went uphill and through a hill where this car stopped, and a big tall boy, taller than a tree, big old tree, stepped out of that car, towered over me, okay? And that boy's name was Thomas Salinas. The little boy tried to run on the bicycle, made it about halfway into the field. Thomas Salinas ran over there, grabbed him, snatched him off that bicycle, and threw him down on the ground really hard. Started stomping him and kicking him with steel-toe boots, okay? And I seen this, and I said, "What the hell?" And I started walking over there. Linda, are you watching what you're filming there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I started walking over there. And Thomas stopped beating on that boy, went back to his car. The little boy took off and ran down to the end of the road where a whole group of the Bloods, wannabe Bloods, little punk ass, thinks they're thug little punk motherfuckers, was at. And Thomas Salinas got back in his car, and I walked right up to the door of his car. He had it in reverse by this time, and he looked at me and he said, "He scratched my car." I said, "What?" I said, "Dude, let me tell you something. You could have called the police and held him accountable, and they would have made him pay for that scratch on that car if it's that big of a deal. The car he was driving wasn't even worth $2,000, so I mean, it wasn't a big deal anyway." But I looked at him, I said, "Let me tell you something. You could have called the police and he would have been held accountable. They would have had to pay for that damage to the car. But what I seen you do, that is a felony. If I ever see you do that again, I will see you in jail." He slammed his car back in park like he wanted to get out and do something. I took one step back. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something, guys. Tommy, he's a big old boy, and I was scared. But I wasn't about to back down. If he would have stepped out that car, I took one step back. I was going to allow him to open that door, stick his leg out the car, and I was going to kick that door with the leg, then open it, and then snatch him out and do whatever was going to happen was going to happen. But it didn't happen that way. I took that one step back. He looked, he seen I was ready to stand my ground. He changed his mind. He put it back in reverse and drove his ass back down there to where all the Bloods was, went to his house across the street. Now, at the time, Thomas Salinas was 21 years old, towered over me. He had a 15-year-old girlfriend that was pregnant, who he lived with her and her parents down the road across the street from where Brian had ran. Now, Brian ran into the middle of about 15 of these little blood punk motherfuckers, you know, ranging anywhere from 15 to 19 years old, okay? There was about 15 of them there. Well, I walked down there to the middle of them, and I seen Brian had a big, huge knot on his head the size of a baseball. I said, "Man, you need to come here with me." And one of them kids grabbed him. He said, "Why, what do you think you're going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to call the law." He said, "You ain't calling nobody. This is my brother. Took him. Come on, let's go." Snatched him and pulled him into a car. Linda, your fingers are up by the lenses there. And the strap, too. Okay. But they took Brian away and they took off. Or they told me, no, that's the way it went. They said, "You ain't calling nobody." I said, "Oh, is that right?" Now, I didn't have a cell phone at that time. Okay. So I walked down to the house, which is about a block down the road again, half a block or so. And I walked in there and I grabbed my cell phone, or not my cell phone, but my cordless phone. We had a cordless phone at the time. And I walked out to the street and it still worked. So I dialed 911 in the street where in every one of their views so they could see, because they told me I wasn't calling nobody. Well, that's when you little gangbangers are wrong, okay? The boy was injured. As soon as they seen me dial 911, even Thomas got in his car, he took off, all of them took off, and somehow Brian escaped them. About 10 minutes later, Brian comes sneaking up through the dark into my yard. Do you remember that, Linda? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. At any rate, Brian comes sneaking back into my yard. He said, I said, I got away from him. Can you protect me? Can you keep me safe? So I said, okay, man, I got the police on the way. I said, stay here in my yard with me. Now, every time they would pull onto the road, Brian Prauge would run and slide himself underneath my 1977 Monte Carlo to hide. He was literally scared. And if y'all know how low to the ground a 1977 Monte Carlo is, y'all will understand. Every time they'd pull on the road, he'd run, slide up underneath there. Okay? And it took the police at least 2.5 hours to respond. Well, whenever they talked to me on the phone, they said, do you need an ambulance? Well, no, there ain't no blood or nothing. I didn't think they was going to take 2 hours. I iced down the wound, but when they got there, it was still a big, huge knot. Took them about 2 hours to get there. They showed up about 12:30. Okay, so they showed up about 12:30, told them everything that happened, told them, I was going off on them, man. What the fuck took y'all so long? So, let me tell y'all something. If I see this shit again, I'm going to break that motherfucker's back and he ain't never going to walk again. They said, yeah, well, then we're going to take you to jail. I said, yeah, well, I know this to be true. But nonetheless, they went down there and they arrested Thomas Salinas and they charged him with the felony. Brian, his mom, they couldn't find his mom. They didn't find her till like 2:30 after the bars closed. Joey, do you remember that?
I remember some of it, but I was still a little kid. I remember the part we were actually in bed, and then we got woke up by all that commotion, and then we ended up being up.
The point is, I went out there myself, and I saved that little boy. I did not have a gun. I did not have a badge. I did not have the authority of the state, and I wasn't like Harvey with any fucking pepper spray hiding in my truck saying, hey, that's enough, and driving off. I literally went hands-on. Okay? What most of you prick motherfuckers talking shit to me, none of you can do. What he did was, okay, they took him to jail. They charged him with felony injury to a child. Okay, so his lawyer called me on the phone like 2-3 months later and asked me what happened. So I told his lawyer what happened. And they pleaded it down to, I think it was a Class A. They dropped the felony injury to a child, and they pleaded it down to Class A, assault causing bodily injury. They took the child out of it all the way, even though he was 10 years old. There was no trial. Thomas got 2 years probation. But the point is, that was me. I'm the one that did that. I'm the one that put myself on the line to keep that little boy from getting killed that night. And had I not stepped up, one more kick to his head, he probably would have been dead. Okay, but you all don't know. You can hit somebody in the head in the wrong way and they will be dead. Now, Freddie Jerome Shiloh learned that the hard way because he punched the man one time. The man fell over, hit his head on the curb, and the curb killed him. Freddie got him in a second homicide case for that. Now, with that one, they banished him from Galveston. They didn't send Jerome to jail for that one, but they did banish him from Galveston. That's why he lives in San Antonio now. But nonetheless, I just wanted to tell y'all the story of Brian Prauge and Thomas Salinas. I lived at 6602 Avenue Q at the time. That's where I was living. That's where I called the police to. Okay, just so y'all can verify the facts before you run your fucking mouth to me. Because none of you that are running your fucking mouth to me, even you pig feisty motherfuckers, ain't got the balls to stand up and do what I did that night. There was at least 15 gangbangers there. I was by myself and unarmed. All right, guys, I got to get off right now because the police are outside right now arresting somebody. So I'm going to get off. I just want to tell y'all that story right there. I'm going to go film the police right now. With that, guys, I'm out.